Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to welcome back a previous guest on the podcast from 2018, Andia Winslow. Andia, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Elayne. Glad to be back.
Of course. And I am just anxious to tell everybody why we're talking. We're talking because you're fabulous, and I wanted to talk to you again anyway. As I said, she was on the podcast in 2018, but today we're going to talk about her journey into, I don't know if it's a new space. I'm saying new to me, but just recently League of Their Own premiered on Amazon Prime, and Andia is a recurring cast member on there. I was watching it last night. I fell asleep watching it, but not because it's boring, just because I was up to like episode 5, like, oh my God, I'm so sleepy. But it was so good, and I'm so excited about League of Their Own. Obviously, is based on the movie, but this is actually a series. And I think I was telling my girlfriends about it, and they were like, oh, it's a series. It's not just another movie. So we're going to talk about that journey to that role, and also your journey as an athlete and a professional golfer and a top voiceover artist of 2021. I saw that there. So a lot of things to talk to Andia about her journey, where she is, where she was, where she is today, and where she's going moving forward. But I'm so excited to share that with you all and to have you ask her questions as well. So, we love to talk about the comments or talk to you in the comments. So please leave your comments there, whether it's during the live broadcast or even later. I do go back and check and see if questions come in later. We'll make sure that we ask Andia any questions. And then on the podcast, when you listen to this on the podcast later, if you have questions, please let us know. We just want to be in touch with you in all the ways. So let me tell you a little bit about Andia before we get started. She is a Yale alumna and founder of The Fit Cycle. She's an on-air TV personality, master certified fitness professional, retired professional golfer, National Parks Foundation ambassador, and contributor for the American Heart Association Go Red for Women campaign. Her innovative fitness and wellness efforts have been recognized globally with features on CNN, The New York Times, USA Today, and more. In 2006, Andia became the 4th African American to ever compete in the LPGA Tour history, joining the distinguished ranks of tennis great Althea Gibson. An elite athlete, Andia trained with Olympic Hall of Fame track and field coach Brooks Johnson and was invited to join the USA Bobsled. I didn't realize the USA Bobsled and Skeleton Federation in preparation for Winter Olympics in Russia. Today, Andia is, as I mentioned, a top voiceover artist. We're going to talk to her about how she got into that space. And as I said, look for her on the silver screen in the TV series reboot of the classic baseball movie, A League of Their Own, and as a golf pioneer, Anne Gregory, in the film Playing Through, which I just read more about that yesterday, Andia. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that. Hi, Ashanti. Ashanti says hello. Berlinda says hello. Let us know if you have any questions as we go along. So, Andia, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I think this conversation is like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic.
Exactly right. I've talked to you in two different lifetimes is what it felt like. And we were saying last time before we came on here, we spoke, I was in Spain at the time. Andia was on her way to Portugal. And again, this was just when I don't know about you, but now I'm like, dang, did I just take ease of travel for granted before this? Now it takes so much more thought that goes into it. So tell us let's start today and go backwards. What is it like to have a major series on what is now a major network, Amazon, appear with the League of Their Own and to be involved with that project? How does that feel? And then we'll go back to how did that come about?
It feels almost unreal, to be honest with you, because I think back to actually 1 year prior and I wasn't doing any of this. And all of a sudden, 1 year later, we've got this hit show. It's number 1 on Amazon Prime. Number 1. The film Playing Through just won at the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival at Best Feature and Minnesota Film Festival. So I was still doing me a year ago, but I think it's just a reminder of how quickly things can change. And then it's really just reaffirmed my commitment to doing the work, not waiting for anything to be handed to me, but just like continuing to do the work, have a great standard of care, and things will come on your path. And it's your choice whether or not you want to take them. So I'm not sure if that answered the question or not.
It does. If not, it set up another one. So I'm excited about this next question. So tell us then, you told us where you are today, how that feels. A year ago, you said you weren't doing any of this. Tell us where you were a year ago.
A year ago, I was just working full-time in voiceover. Voiceover was another pivot from a previous career. I was I'd work heavy in the worlds of commercial VO, promos, so TV promos, next on ABC, things like that. Video games, animation, live events, live event announcing for award shows and things like that. So I was just fully into voiceover, and the pandemic provided me proved to be a really great time for voiceover actors because we were still working. We were one of the only people in the populations in the entertainment industry that worked full time with no disruption. So, I worked from my home studio, work all day. Promo work often can be like, hey, this is going live on the air in 30 minutes. So I was kind of siloed. I stayed in my home, but there was nothing else to do. So I just stayed in my home and worked and stacked my chips. So then when these opportunities came along, I'm like, wow, I'm actually able to leave the house.
Right. What is that like? And do I want to?
What are the terms exactly? So
Right.
both shoots were on location. So I really was kind of uprooted from where I was, but it's the kind of challenge I always seek. I'm always looking for adventure in some capacity, whether that's taking a new route to the grocery store or being on camera shooting feature films or live action TV shows. So
Beautiful. So now how did the opportunities come into your path? Because it sounds like you weren't, and I don't know if this is right, but it sounds like you weren't necessarily actively pursuing these things, or were you in a space of, sort of evolving, like I think acting or being in front of the camera as opposed to the voice behind so many productions is the next step. How did you get to that step?
It's really, I think, just what I was putting into the ether. I said, universe, I'd like a new challenge because every 3 to 4 years, I'm like, okay, that's been cool. Just like you like to travel, like I need a location, I need a new challenge. So that's one thing. But I didn't specifically seek out on camera. I'd done on camera before as, a fitness professional or as a host on a TV network. But this is completely different. This is like a deep dive into other people's characters, becoming someone else. It's hard to not be self-conscious. It's a completely different craft. So what happened is I got a direct message for the movie. A gentleman named Curtis Jordan, the writer and executive producer of the film, he wrote me and he said, hey, we'd like for you to play a role in this Anne Gregory film. Anne Gregory was the first woman of color to play in a USGA, a United States Golf Association event here in the States in the 50s. And it just so turns out that my family knows the family of Anne Gregory. So I've got this historical legacy to Anne Gregory. One of the reasons I played golf was because of Anne Gregory. So I'm like, this is a documentary film about this great golfer and voiceover, perfect marriage. But then he's like, but it's not voiceover. I'm like, I don't understand. It's a live action movie. So am I going to be the voice in her head? And then
you were still thinking voiceover at first.
Right. And my agent's like, read between the lines. It's a feature film. I was like, again, I don't understand how I'm going to, am I a producer? Am I a producer? Am I a consultant? They're like, no, fool.
You are Anne Gregory.
Right. So that happened. That was the first thing. And then on Instagram, I think what I was doing was I would post. I'm a physically active person. Movement is kind of what informs my life. And I would post during the pandemic. One of the things I did to relieve stress is I would go hit golf balls or I would hit baseballs, just beating baseballs to get rid of stress. And so I was hitting balls and I was posting these images of me hitting balls. And I think someone saw that, some hyperlink, they saw that. And then it got to production and casting. And so they called me and they're like, hey, would you like to try out for this role in A League of Their Own? We're looking for this, kind of athletic character who's also, distinguished, who's first of her kind and this and that. Would you like to try out? And I said, well, I just did this other film. My dad encouraged me to do it. And I said, you know what, why not? And I love the original movie. And that happened very quickly. A week later, I was in Pittsburgh on location shooting. So again, wasn't seeking it out, but I did tell the universe I was looking for something new. I also was tired of being siloed, and here we are.
So, oh my goodness, I love this. So, talk about manifesting. I mean, we'll talk about it. But I'm just mean this idea of manifesting what you're looking for, but and something I talk about a lot, being open to the possibilities. So, as you said, it wasn't necessarily you were kind of seeking or open to these possibilities, but it wasn't like this is what it's going to be next. This is what I have to do. So I just want everyone to kind of tap into that, sort of being in that space, which I believe, and when I let go in that way, it sort of makes me more open, but also frees me from anxiety, which I might be prone to do, or the sense of needing to control everything. And then you just never know what's going to come your way. And I think also being yourself, being who you were. Like you said, you were posting, you're a very physically fit, active person, have a background in fitness. were pro golfer yourself, and then you were posting videos of you essentially releasing stress in your way, or maybe your natural way that you normally do it, and you never know who's watching in the best way.
Right. I didn't do it with the intention to achieve something, and I think that's the other thing that I wasn't saying, "Hey, look at me, please hire me for this or select me for this." I was completely expressing myself in my own way. I would have done it even if I didn't post it, but it was kind of fun. I would chase the balls, and it was kind of cute. So it was just me being me. At the same time, I will say that although these opportunities came up, there's a distinction between opportunities and distractions, because there were also opportunities that seemed lucrative, and I said no to those. And if I had not said no to those, I wouldn't have had these other things. So knowing that I do want to challenge, I do want to change, but not everything that glitters is gold.
Mm-hmm. What about those opportunities led you in your spirit to know that you should say no? Because obviously, first thing people might think, oh, it's a lot of money, or it's an opportunity to do. Maybe it's even was a similar kind of thing of what what you're doing now, but it sounds like it just didn't feel right. How do you know when to say no?
I know almost instantly. My gut will be like, nah. And I'm leaning into that more. And I would say that in my previous versions of myself, I'm like, oh, well, it may not come back, or, there was this feeling of lack.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to grab this because it may not come back, or someone else might get it, or, my time will have passed. And also the issue of money.
Mm-hmm.
The previous self didn't have money, was broke, was an entrepreneur and trying to make things work. And I would have said yes just because of the money. One of the opportunities would require me to go back to New York full time. I also signed a contract that would limit my work opportunities. I'd have to be contracted to this company full time and only them. It was lucrative, but that's not who I am. Mm-hmm. I like to dip and dab. I like to explore. I'm curious. I like to do different things every day. And it would have been, draining. I might have 1 million followers on social media right now if I would have taken that job, and I would have had a nice paycheck, but I would have been limited in my creative escapades. So I'm glad I said no. And as a result, what's happened is even better than that could have been. And I would have been bored, to be honest with you.
Right. You would have been paid for board. And that's the thing. I think too, looking at it sounds like what you're saying is make sure for everyone listening to consider the bigger picture, or the long game, as we would say, since our theme today is about playing through. I say that I make decisions now. In my 20s, I probably made decisions for myself in my 20s, and it was fabulous, and I love it and wouldn't change it. I had a lot of fun in my 20s. Today, as a woman in my 40s, I think my decisions certainly are more in tune with my gut, but also I'm thinking about my future self. Like what I want now, but then am I going to be, is this something that once I settle into it, like if you said a certain opportunity or a relationship or anything, like how do I think this might feel years from now? Not even if it's not forever, because things change and we can always evolve, but just trying to be more thoughtful about the decisions and how it aligns with the direction that you're going in, right? I would imagine that's part of it too, would you say?
Oh, definitely. I think it's this growth and challenge path. That's the path that I'm on now. It's not about I need to make it or I need money. It's, am I going to grow, and am I going to be challenged? And if the answer is no, then the answer is no matter how much money comes my way. So it's a really beautiful and privileged place to be. And looking back, I'm like, damn, I wish I would have realized this sooner. But also it's okay, because I had to experience a circuitous path to get here to understand how valuable freedom is, freedom to do and freedom to not do.
Right.
I learned, I'm like, wow, it's not just about freedom and cash, freedom and movement. It's freedom to say, no, thank you. Or not right now, or let's shelve this conversation for another time.
Right. Do you feel like during the pandemic, especially like you said, as a voiceover artist, you were working consistently? Would you say for about, again, this theme of playing through, should people have moments where they are head down focused on work or achieving a certain thing, or, stacking the coin, which I'm all about, when you need to, so you can get to a place of freedom of different kinds of choices? Are there periods, in other words, where you're more open into receiving, and then periods where you're like, okay, I'm focusing on this one thing right now?
That's a really great question, and something I wish you would have asked me when I was struggling with this.
My bad.
I wish we'd have known each other when I needed you to ask me that question.
Right.
I think there was a time in my life where I still to this day, I like to do everything. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, a penny. Oh,
Right.
oh. But I had a friend who always tell me, just focus on one thing. I'm like, that's not who I am. But during the pandemic, there was nothing else to do. As a result, I focused on one thing and I was like, oh, I see.
Oh, right.
I see. And that's how I achieved the success I did in voice artistry is that I focused on one thing. I mastered my craft. I asked questions. I took classes. I read all the things. I listened to all the blogs. I watched all the videos. I engaged all the mentors for 2 years. That's all I did. And then I realized, like, I see what you're saying. So I think what a younger me would have had to fight was, if you do one thing really well, you have the platform then to do more things. But if you split your time, then you will
Your
not,
energy.
and your energies, you'll have, it's like a bank account. Like you got to make sure that you put it in and accrue the most interest possible. And so now that I've accrued that interest, I'm at a level where I don't have to ask for opportunities anymore. Opportunities just come to me oftentimes. So I can still work heavy in voiceover, but these other opportunities are now open to me, and I have the time and freedom because I've achieved this success over here. So I wish I would have taken that advice earlier. No, I can't say that. It would have been interesting if I would have taken that advice earlier.
Mm-hmm. And I mean that I hear what you're saying about taking it early, but sometimes I think the lesson sinks in deeper, right? When we don't listen to the advice, and then we get into a moment where you're in it, and you're like, oh, okay, right. Like you'll never forget that lesson again.
That's
Right.
true. Just this year, finally, and this is probably gonna age me, but I found I was like, oh, that's what they meant when they said youth is wasted on the young. Okay, I get
Right.
it.
Exactly right.
Like, all
Oh,
right.
that's right.
That's it.
One of my favorite books that I quote often is the one called The One Thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And the quote, or the whole premise really of the book, is, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary?
Mm.
The one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary.
So what
And
was
I
it for you? What was it for you? What was the one thing?
It changes. The one thing right now for me is writing. I've always loved writing. I've always, been around. I mean, by always, I mean, even when I was little, before I knew how to write, I just literally love the feel of pen on paper. And it's something I go into periods where I'm really heavy into it, whether I'm writing for myself or, ghost writing or creating content for other people. But I'm really in a space right now where I'm like, I believe writing is my one thing that's going to make other things easier or unnecessary. My favorite part is the unnecessary part of that of that theory, because you don't think of that, like you said. So now for you, easier projects are coming, things are coming. Unnecessary is you don't have to pursue those things in the same kind of way or at all, right? It's just you just start to realize when you put your energy into that one thing, and which doesn't mean, I want everyone to know, it doesn't mean like you're not doing anything else. You have, we have lives, we have responsibilities, obligations, but what's the one thing you're going to focus on right now? And that could change over time, where everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. So I love that you're an example of that, just what you just shared with us.
Well,
So
thanks for, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great audiobook too. I've read it, and it's one of those books that I go back to and just listen to again. Like, I need to be, like you said, I'm squirrel, like all over the place. I need to refocus, because we all have, I think, especially today, we have access to so many opportunities, possibilities, whatever it is. So we're interested in a lot more things, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing, but what's the vision, and then backing into it, what can you focus on right now that could potentially make that easier, or some other things unnecessary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Maurice says on here, truly amazing journey. Thank you, Maurice. Thetis, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Oh, it's a program animated. Then he said, oh, a live film. They said, oh, a live film. So you realize a live film. Yes. So we are talking again to Andia Winslow. She is in the film, the series, A League of Their Own, which is based on the film, and also in Playing Through, which is it a film? It's not a documentary. It's an actual film.
Live action independent film. Yes.
Yes, an action film where she's playing the pro golfer.
Anne Gregory.
Anne Gregory. That's right. Anne Gregory. All right. Morgan said, I've read The One Thing, and I think writing is my one thing right now too. Okay, Morgan, me and you, we're gonna write our way through this. And I think it's funny what you mentioned, Andia, about swinging at golf balls or what did you say?
Baseballs.
You didn't. You said it better though. Did you say cracking? What did you say?
Beating the stress off.
Beating the stress. Yes, like that. Writing is that for me. Like that is one the thing that I would do even without being paid. It's just like something that I enjoy, et cetera. And I think that's also a reason I want to lean into it, because a lot of the things that I focus on, at least for a while, was like, how can this grow the business, and how can this make money, and how can this build clients? And again, maybe there's a time for that, but it started to sort of not feel as good with doing it. And I don't want to do that with the things that I hold precious. So I would like to ask you, what are the things that what are you holding precious right now? What are you looking forward to? What do you feel like what are the possibilities that you're open to right now?
I would say kind of to parallel what you're saying about not trying to monetize the things you love, you know, because you want to love them. You want to have an outlet. If they're the things that are your outlet, you don't necessarily need to monetize. So for me, it's anything that's movement based. Fitness. I was a fitness professional and a thought leader in the industry, but now I don't like to accept remuneration for that because it kind of takes away the joy from it. So it's like when I'm doing movement based things, it's just for me. I like to be active. I like to hike. I like to mountain bike. I don't need to teach a class about it. I don't need to, unless it's really good pay. Now, hold on.
Right. Right.
Programmatic thrusts where I get paid by a corporation, things like that. But in general, movement is kind of what, movement for me is like some people washing the dishes. They get a lot of their great thoughts, or taking a shower, they get their great thoughts. That's where I get my great thoughts. Also, I've been reading a lot more for pleasure. I read every day for work. I'm also the New Yorker and the New York Times and Rolling Stone. So I read long form narration. And so I know all the news because I have to read it for the publications. But in so doing, I kind of lost my love of reading. So I'm back to reading for pleasure. And, all those free little libraries. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get this title. And every week it's a couple new books and things that I wouldn't necessarily pick before. Random, spy novels I'll read. I'll read kids' books. I'll read, books from, the early 1900s. It doesn't matter. It's just like, is it a book? I'm going to read it. Long form article. That's something that I'm going to read about, HVAC today. It's completely random.
Right.
I think that's where I am. Like, I just want to consume content because it's inspiring. And it also gives me a better global understanding of where I fit in the world, whether it's as a human being working through conservation or as a woman in the world. It just doesn't matter. I just read everything for pleasure. And that's been strangely relaxing.
I wonder if the relaxing part of it, even if not as much the reading, is that you are doing it purely for pleasure.
Yes.
It's not with a result in mind.
Right. No need to try to control it. It exists. I'm just a part of it. And also, I think it's also separation from the screen. When I'm reading a book, there's no phone. I'm not scrolling. I'm not, answering pings. I'm really invested in this hour or 2 hours in this story. I've had to learn to be like, this story sucks. Like I'm going to put it back on the shelf. But it is a cool way for me to actually get away. And I do the same thing with movement. No phone typically, or I'll have a phone at the very end. But just finding a piece of peace in every day and being removed from what's happening in my own life. That's been very, very therapeutic. And then I think one more thing I'll say about that is a mentor told me this years ago. I didn't quite understand it then again. Are you spending time? Are you investing time?
Tell us about that.
Spending? I spend time. He's like, no. Are you spending it? Or are you investing it? Where's the compound interest? I'm like, investing. He's like, yes. Investing time is me learning things. No one can take that from me. And it's generative. Investing time is breaking bread with friends and family. Investing time is traveling, gaining new experiences and new perspectives. Spending time is scrolling. Spending time is gossiping. Spending time is not being present in the moment in which I am living, right? So that's spending. And I'm choosing now to be more conscious in my investment of time. This relationship we're having right now, like we engaged in 2018 and here we are again. That's an investment. It's a relationship. It's relational. So just being more mindful of how I use and invest my time.
I love that. How did you get to that? How did you get to the point where the things that you're saying, it sounds like there was certainly a shift for you. I don't know if it was because a lot of us had shifts for better or worse during the pandemic time, but I think a definite evolution of just how you're thinking about things, how you're considering things, whether it's within yourself, just like what you just mentioned about how you invest your time versus spending, or is it from different energy or people that you have in your life who are advising you in different ways? What would you say that it was for you?
Combination. It's definitely, what do they say? What's the quote? The master will appear when the student is ready.
Mm-hmm.
I had wonderful mentorship all of my life. And when I was younger, first playing golf, actually, all of my mentors were like, the mean age was like 78. So it's me hanging out with these wise women and men, and they would give me these nuggets. And I think I was just like, I'll put that on shelf A and shelf
Right.
B. I couldn't quite understand. I didn't have the world perspective. But then during the quietude of the pandemic, I was like, oh yeah,
You pulled that off the shelf. Right.
1994. Oh, that's a good one from 99. So
Right.
let's sit quietly, the quiet moments, and not a quiet area of like waiting, but a quiet moment of contemplating and reflecting. But also, I was a caretaker for a time for an older person, for my grandfather, and so I think looking back on that experience, man, I learned so much. And during that year that I was doing it, it was the most difficult thing and also the most rewarding thing I've ever done. But like really understanding, I was so tired of like digging holes and trying to build and build and build. And he's like, stop digging then. And I was like, stop digging? What do you mean stop digging? It's like, stop digging holes. The only holes that you should be digging are foundational holes. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not trying to be anything anymore. I'm just trying to be. And as a result of me being and living authentically in who I am at this current juncture, things are coming to me because I'm attracting it. I'm attracting peace. It's a very, the relinquishing of control yields more control. It's counterintuitive, but in sport, that's how it is too. When people find flow, they're not fighting to get something. They're fighting to be in something. And as a result, they find this flow, and that flow can be achieved in, the legal profession, the financial profession, the creative profession, the athletic profession. And that is it's a beautiful place to be. And once you're in the flow, you don't say, I'm in the flow, because once you do that, you lose it.
Right.
Be in it. Just feel the vibes of it, whatever your craft is. And I was flowing, Elayne. I was flowing the last 2 years. And
I see. You were present, flowing, and enjoying it.
Yeah, it was great.
Excellent. So Charlotte says here, your performance in Playing Through was superb. I loved it. A League of Their Own was excellent also. Hopefully a second season. Playing Through is my favorite. I'm so proud and happy for my brother for fulfilling his dream. You were excellent as Anne Gregory.
Oh,
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Charlotte. Excellent. So anyone, if you have any other questions or anything for Andia, please pop in. You're giving us so much. I knew it was going to be a great conversation anyway, but I love these, I call them woo-woo conversations, but you know what I mean, in a good way though. I'm all about it. So what would you say, let's see, who would you say has been your greatest influence in your change in this place where the space that you've been now? Is it, whether it's someone you know personally, something you've read, some experience that you have that sort of triggered this shift? Just for anyone who's listening, watching now, listening later, who might be, I think a lot of people right now, I don't know about you, but certainly in my work as a coach with women especially, feel stuck, don't know why, don't know if stuck is what they feel, or just going through this space of I think uncertainty for all of us because of the world we live in now, as we said, whether it's post-pandemic or things with the government or whatever's going on, there's kind of this sense of unease, or it can be if you allow it to get to you. I think you're in a very grounded place. What would you say for you either brings you back to that place or has been the best sort of influence for you in getting to this place of flow?
That's a really good question. I would say first it takes a village, to raise a knucklehead. So there's no one person. It's really the collective that raised me from birth until now. And I don't think anyone's ever too old or too wizened to have mentorship. I still seek out mentorship all the time because that's a great way to reflect, a great way to inform new experiences and be challenged. In terms of how I ground myself, especially in this time of dis-ease and uncertainty, I recommitted myself to doing the work. And I've said this now so much, people are like, oh, this is trite, but I recommitted to every day focusing on what I could do, what I can control. And that's it. You were granted the labor, not the fruits of your labor. So I focused on, I'm not worrying about what happens. What is it that I can do? I wake up every morning. I do a little meditation, my own walking, moving meditation. I don't sit quietly. That's not how I meditate. I meditate how I meditate, and that's walking. I drink water. I read a little bit in the morning. I do my calisthenics or I work out. I do this every morning. That's doing the work. I do my vocal warm-ups to take about 30 minutes so that I'm primed for my auditions and gigs that come up. I answer emails in a timely fashion. I thank people. I reach out to people. That's doing the work. I do market research on the trends in my industry. I, watch content just to be informed about what's going on. That's the work. And by the time I'm done with all that, it's 3 o'clock. Right. So there was no time for me to be like wallowing or just like, oh, what's going to be? Because I was focused on doing what I could control, moving my body, moving my brain. There's this brain body continuum thing. If I focus on that, then that's all. And then it's 3 o'clock. It's time for a midday nap. It's time for a nice lunch. Take another walk. Now it's 6 o'clock. There was no time for wallowing. It's just, I feel like this is maybe too easy, but I had to get there. It was a process. It wasn't like I just arrived and like, oh, this is so simple. I learned over 20, 30 years to do this. And I'm finally now like, I see what the old timers were saying. I get it. But you have to be comfortable enough to know that you doing the labor is enough. That is the job. In voiceover, people say, well, how did you get that gig? How did you do that thing? Well, I auditioned. Auditioning is the job. Booking the gig, that's the party. That's the cherry on top. But me doing the work every day in, day out, that is what you're eligible for, I guess.
Excellent. I love that. And I think too, we're in such a results driven, it's not even results driven, it's like results showcasing time in our lives, with social media. And again, we all have access to so much information, maybe too much of each other's information. So, if I see somebody doing something, I'm like, oh, I want results like that. We didn't have that, many years ago where we were all in everybody's business and then comparing as much to ourselves. So I love this idea of focusing on the work, and the work is not even just, for anyone listening, your job or whatever you're trying to accomplish. The work is, I love that you basically have told us you start your day with yourself. Your movement, your version of meditation. For me is going for a run. I love it as meditation. Like you said, movement for me is my meditation. Or just being quiet in the morning and not talking as I do and doing some things and taking care of myself. So those parts of the things are the investment, as you talked about earlier, in yourself too, that help, and not based on the results or the end results. The results are going to come either way, right? And it might look like this. It's going to come either way when it's supposed to come. But I think too, and would you say this too? I'm always proud of myself when I do those things for me, either way. Right. Whatever the result is, I can always say, sort of like I always feel like if you have a disagreement with someone, you allow them to take you sort of out of yourself, if you will, then you're like, why did I say that? Oh, I wish I said this. So just go through this whole spiral about the argument and never the thing you're arguing about, as opposed to if you can walk away saying, you know what, I was still myself. I maintained who I was. I didn't allow them to, I always say, take the love out of me. Like I still approached it in this way that I felt I had integrity about. I can always walk away with that, even if the results didn't turn out the way I like. So I love this idea of investing in yourself to start your day in whatever ways that you can. Morgan said, for voiceovers, good question, Morgan. Did you hire a voice coach or a reading coach?
Yes, Morgan, in the beginning, first of all, I read everything that had to do with voiceover. I'm talking about, I read all of the books that are published, all the blogs. I think so. Inform yourself. But then, yes, even at the stage where I am now, all of the voiceover actors who are really big time, they all still get coaching. Same with on-camera actors, because you still want someone to be a watchful eye or a watchful ear in this case. So I took vocal lessons, voiceover specific lessons, and I audited lessons. And I think it's a great place to start. Because again, you need the feedback. And also when you take group lessons, you can learn from your classmates. It's not just about you. You want to see what mistakes other people are making so you can absolve yourself from that kind of path, or see the successes, because again, you can say, oh, I see what that person did. That resonated. So observation is huge in voiceover. It's counterintuitive because you're like, observation, your eyes, but observation is important. And then also doing your market research, not just coaching, but going and saying, what is the type of voice right now? Back in the day, talking about 20s, 30s, 40s, it was that transatlantic accent here in this country. That was the voice. And then it became the radio announcer, or like the newscaster announcer. That read is no longer popular. Now it's this authentic, casual, millennial apathy, even sometimes girl guy next door in the know. And so it's a very much like friend talking to friend in the commercial space. And then animation used to be, you know, all Daffy Duck and Elmer Fudd and things. But now animation, if you look, especially on Netflix and streaming sites, animation is grounded. It sounds like regular people. Look at BoJack Horseman and Bob's Burgers. It's a grounded voice. It's not a cartoony voice. So if you don't know that that's what the market demands, you're going to be auditioning in ways that don't even make sense. No one's hiring for that. So being observant, being reflective, and then yes, getting coaching, whether it's individual or group classes, has been very, very beneficial to me. Thanks for asking, Morgan.
Yes, thanks for asking. Excellent question, excellent answer. And I think too, I love, of course, I'm all about this getting support, continuing to get support that you mentioned, continuing to get coaching. And I have an appointment with my coach this afternoon at 3:30. So I'll be going to see her. So, you know, you keep getting that support, whatever that looks like for you, especially if you're looking into a particular industry. So Morgan, let us know if that was helpful. Anyone else, if you have any questions. So Andia, what is the one thing you would love to leave with people watching or folks who will be listening later, either as relates to what you're up to? Well, we'll share more about what you're up to at the end. Actually, I'm not gonna let you off that easy. You might be like, I have a new project coming out. Okay, that's great. We love it. We're gonna support everything that Andia does. But what would you say, especially in light of this conversation, is one thing you want to make sure people know today, or maybe even thinking about, as you mentioned earlier, some things that you would have wanted your younger self to know or realize, and that might be helpful for folks moving forward?
Hit me with the 1-2. The circuitous path is okay. You know, I think in living a life that was divergent or not traditional, or just having a lot of life experiences, all those things help inform me as an artist and make me a more robust artist. People are like, well, how did you dig into that character? How did you achieve that sound? I saw it. I watched it on the subway. I met people on the street who sounded like that. I've been collecting voices. I've been collecting words. I've been collecting experiences. And all those things, although they were hard or laborious or annoying, man, they built me. It wasn't even character revealing. It was character building. They made me a better me now. The hard and the easy, the good and the bad. I mean, looking back, I'm like, I'm so glad it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, because if it did, that would have been, I don't know what I would have been doing. I would have been like in a house, like just bored or something. I don't know. I would have amassed money and paid off my student loans earlier and had a mortgage earlier. But I think I'd then be like, I've achieved success, and I would be still wanting. I'd still be searching for something. And now the search is it's not a quest. It's just like a everyday reality. It's like I'm going on an adventure. I don't have to seek adventure. Adventure is just all around me. Adventure is me picking lemon versus lime. Adventure is, like I said, walking a different route to the grocery store. Adventure is really in everything I do, and I don't have to try to grasp it or control it. I'm just living a life. So that's the answer. Live a life.
Beautiful. I love it. And I remember now that you mentioned adventure, our conversation in 2018, it was sort of talking about how adventure plays such a big role in your life, even as a child, like with your parents encouraging you to take the adventure. And it's just so interesting to see these few years later, time goes so fast, right? But just how adventure still, even today, plays such an important role in your life, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's and thank you for saying that adventure doesn't always have to look like jumping off a cliff. In fact, I don't think Andia or I advise that. Certainly with that, everyone talks about take the leap, jump. I'm always like, well, take the leap, but we can think about, what this, or, pick a lemon instead of a lime. It doesn't have to always be, right? I think sometimes some of us are paralyzed because we don't feel like the adventure is big enough and not realizing all the small ways that we can get there. I do want to say, Morgan said, I've been told several times I have a great voice for the work. Very good, Morgan. I'm thinking about getting ready for the next global lockdown. Okay, thank you. Excellent. Andia, thank you. Go ahead.
Morgan, there's a website you should check out called I want to be a voiceactor.com. It's a website managed by kind of like a godfather of the business named D. Bradley Baker. So I want to be a voiceoveractor.com. Read all his text, but also read the question and answer, because he kind of gets in there, and it's free, and he's just doing it because he's a steward of the craft and he wants people to experience it in. So check that out.
Excellent. Look at that, Morgan. I want to be a voiceover.
I want to be a voice actor. I want to be a voiceactor.com.
I want to be a voiceactor.com. Morgan, make sure you check that out. I have to write that down so I can put it in the notes. So now before we go, Andia, tell us what, if you want to, maybe it's just, being open to the next adventure. What's next for you? Tell people how to find out more about you. I'm sure folks here want to get in touch or just follow what you're doing. Everyone, I'm going to say, because I'm going to finish it tonight, go watch League of Their Own on Amazon Prime and enjoy it. It's delightful. It has its I won't say heavy moments, but it's very real for the time that they're in moments. But also, I just the characters. It's delightful. So please go watch that. But tell us what else is going on.
Well, first I want to find out what I'm having for lunch.
That's first. In the moment. Let's be present in the moment. That's right, because you're in Cali, so you're hungry.
A burrito, or am I going to have a taco salad? I don't know. All jokes aside, I think, just more promotion for A League of Their Own. Playing Through is trying to get distribution, so working with the team on that. I'm writing a book, finally. I've got several books. I think the one that makes most sense and is the lowest hanging fruit is a voiceover book about my experience, and kind of like a case study more than anything, and kind of a blueprint for how to achieve sustained success in the business, in the new way that the business exists. And that's all I got going on right now. And I'm just every day committed to doing the work. And you can find me on social at Andia Winslow across the board, IG, Twitter, Facebook. And my website is andiavoiceover.com.
Excellent. And if you with writing a book, if you want to talk through anything, I'm happy to share just my experiences of doing that the last year. I have great resources, people that are in the industry and all that stuff. I'm happy to share any of that with you.
Appreciate that. And I'm going to call you on that.
Exactly. Right. I always tell people that when people are like, you should come visit me in Paris. Now I am that person who's going to come visit you. Or they say, you should ask me. I am that person. So don't act different when I totally would be happy to help in any way that I can.
I appreciate that.
Of course, Andia. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Maurice said, great website. Hopefully he's talking about the voiceover website that you mentioned.
Hey, Maurice Scott. Hey.
Hey, Maurice. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate the conversation, Andia. This was excellent. I knew it would be, but just you're my type of person, just up my alley. Trying to get in this sort of centered space. Everyone, thank you so much. Make sure you check out Andia's website, check out League of Their Own, check out Playing Through when it comes. I'm claiming that's going to come out and we can all watch that soon one day. And we will talk to you soon. Andia, hold on one second.